Somebody find the Pacers some clothes. They're streaking. They beat the Bulls for win number 2 in a row. Pascal Siakam saves the day at the buzzer finally for the Pacers. A shot goes their way at the end. We'll talk about all the trends that got it done and empty the notebook on a weekend. Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday/weekend, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin, and today the Pacers have won twice in a row. For the first time this season, they beat the Bulls at the Horn. Okay, 0.1 seconds away from the Horn. Pascal Siakam over two defenders at the buzzer. The poise, the patience, the stones for the Pacers' first game winner of the year after nearly just handing this game away with an atrocious first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter in a game that had funky flow, but a lot of thematic stuff for the Pacers that has been working for them as they've searched for solutions. Worked in this game, and Pascal Siakam did not care about what was and wasn't working in the final seconds as the Pacers get a win. We'll break down all of those trends, Siakam shots, some things that didn't go so well that they can address with tougher opponents coming this week, and much more as the Pacers, again, have won twice in a row for the first time this season. But of course, we start at the end because it's the story of the game. It's the story of the Pacers' first win. It's Siakam when it counts with the stones at the buzzer. And a guy who has more to his credit clutch plays than he is given credit for, because very few of them are like this, right? Where they literally are the game winner. I believe his only other true game winner for the Pacers was, if people remember, Boston last year. Early in the season, the Pacers were 1-3, about to be a 1-4 start. They get to overtime with Boston, and Siakam breaks the tie with a three with 7 seconds left. Haliburton throws the ball off the back of his defender to run the clock out. That was a Siakam game winner. He also had that shot late, to tie against OKC. Literally this season, I remember he had a steal against Dallas that won them another crazy comeback last year. He has a lot of clutch plays, but very few for the Pacers. True at the Horn or late game winners. This was among his first few, and it was gorgeous. Like, this is what makes him a special player, is the moves he has just have so many counters and kind of off balance elements to them that he can get to the next thing based on what happens in the middle of his attack. So he gets it at the top. He's guarded by Buzelis one-on-one. Oh, a younger player. Okay, a crafty guy like Siakam likes to go with that kind of guy. So he goes to the right, and I've seen him hit a pull-up mid-range shot from there a million times. But okay, here comes Tre Jones, who started the possession guarding Ben Mathurin, and he's going to double. And then Siakam's going to drive in and try to rise up over Buzelis, and he's going to shot fake, and that's where he has a decision point. There's only like 2 seconds tops left, maybe a little less. So he could pass to Mathurin at the top of the key. They might run out of time. Tre Jones starts to try to recover as he's landing from falling for the first pump fake. Jay Huff is wide open in the weak side corner because of the scram with Tre Jones, but that pass is too far. They don't have time for that. So the shot fake is perfect because it gives Siakam options, but the options he didn't need them because both defenders got off the ground on the fake. Tre Jones got up and down before he could recover. Buzelis got up and got down, and Buzelis had a quick second jump, but Siakam, so crafty, so patient, so poised, sits there for a second, waits till he's got the jump advantage with Buzelis going down, creates the space, rises up. Perfect. Butter, as he said in his post-game presser, said he practices that shot against his brother thousands of times in his life. He hasn't had to do it because Tyrese Haliburton's been there, and Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith have their fair share of clutch successes for this team, but has multiple late important shots for this team. And that's just off the top of my head, the ones I mentioned earlier. I'm sure he has more than that. So the stones on that play were huge. And really for Siakam, I mean, my only other note about him in this game, but so many times this season in their close games or in their wins or whatever descriptive time you'd like to use, my description of Siakam is the adults in the room, where when things get sideways, when things look bad for the Pacers, they're sinking. When they need an answer to whatever problem is in front of them, their answer is Siakam, who's steadying on both ends, who's defending very well, who can be a setup man if they need him to be, who can hit the glass hard, who can get some stops, who can make some tough shots, And he can make shots that no one else on the team really takes very often in a way that really just gets the game flow back toward or in the Pacers' favor. And in a game like this, they won by 2 points. The Pacers won this game by 2. He was plus 22 in 36 minutes. That means in the less than 12 minutes Siakam was not in the game, the Pacers lost them by 20. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl's minutes woefully ineffective in this game, and they needed every second Siakam was out there to win. That doesn't mean a ton against a Bulls team that is completely reeling right now, but the Bulls have a better record than the Pacers. The Bulls won 5 games in a row to start the season. The Pacers still don't have 5 wins, and Siakam was clearly the best player in this game and controlled it in every way, and it did so with control to get the game winner and to actually seal this game for the Pacers, who get to celebrate finally being on the right end of one of those shots. No Giannis, no Nesmith missing, no, my gosh, Brandon Ingram. I don't know why I forgot his shot. And in redemption for Siakam, who got blocked against Pirtle last week and did not have a moment like the one I'm describing. He has also had late game non-moments for the Pacers. So a huge one for him. Not enough time left for the Bulls to do anything. Game over for the Pacers. Fun celebration as Andrew Nembhard takes his headband and just flings it away. A lot of the game flow stuff and trends from this game were interesting to me. I just did an entire segment on this after the Pacers beat the Wizards, so I don't want to spend forever talking about defense, but that was a big trend from this game that's continued for the Pacers. 97 allowed against Toronto, top 10 offense. 86 allowed against the Wizards. The Wizards stink, but that is the fewest points the Wizards have scored in a game this season, and now 101 allowed against the Chicago Bulls, who are hanging around in the high teens of offensive rating. They started the season absolutely blistering hot, so they're probably like a 22nd best offense. Not a good offense, but not a bad offense. Held them to 101. I believe that's the lowest Bulls scoring game of the season. I'm currently triple checking their schedule. Yes, their previous low was 107 this week against the Heat. So again, even same thing as the Wizards. Even if you're going to say it's just the Bulls, their offense stinks. That's true, but no one else held them to this low of a total as the Pacers just did. And they just did that to the Wizards, and they limited the Raptors. Their defense is something right now that's noteworthy. I might dive into some of the numbers on that for a segment tomorrow, but that's another trend that's been interesting. These game flow is a trend in that the Pacers have now a couple games in a row, by a couple I mean 2, responded from their worst moments, right? These runs were just killing them against Detroit, against Cleveland, against Toronto. They just had one huge run that did them in, and they were even or better than their opponent the rest of the game. This game's flow is very different in that the Bulls had a bunch of mini runs, right? The Pacers would go up 11, the Bulls would get down to 3, the Pacers would go up 7, the Bulls would get down to 2, the Pacers would go up 6, the Bulls take a lead in the fourth quarter. So just as the Bulls were responding, right, 13 lead changes in the game, the Pacers were too. They weren't letting a long run happen, and they were, like, the longest run in this game was a 15-point run for the Pacers from the late first into the early second quarter, and the Pacers very often had answers in a way they haven't against some of these long runs. It's only 2 games for that one. Like, their defensive run is a little longer. A lot of the other trends we're talking about today are a little longer, but I thought that was noteworthy that their game flow trend for the Pacers is trending in the right direction at the current moment. 2 more trends to get to, and then I really need to talk about Jay Huff bookending this game with dominant play, because that would have been the story of the game if Pascal Siakam didn't hit a game winner that stole the show. 2 more. One is Jay Huff related. This center rotation is working right now. So Jay Huff had 2 starts before this week, this season. Both of them were at the 4. He started next to Jackson in Minnesota. They were so banged up, they just needed anyone to play the 4, technically. And then he started at the 4 in Golden State. Same thing. He was next to Isaiah Jackson. So this week against the Wizards was the first time he started at the 5, and then again tonight. That has been really working for the Pacers. One, because he was obviously terrific to open this game, but it's kind of opened up the starting 5 in a way that was predictable, right? That was one of the arguments for him starting that has gone the way that people thought it might. Again, we'll see if he has a bad game shooting, how it feels, but he's spread out that floor enough that it's helped the starting group. But that was like an expected reason to do it. What's been the huge boost so far for this is Isaiah Jackson looks great these last 2 games. He had 14 and 11 tonight, and we'll talk about more of his individual stuff later. But he just clicks well with McConnell, and he's been really, really good with the second unit. 5 for 5 for Isaiah Jackson today. And I kind of mentioned this yesterday when talking about Huff starting, but I have a stat now because I wrote a story on it. Jay Huff's entire career, right? He's played 4 years in the NBA before joining the Pacers. In those 4 seasons, he had played a total of 912 minutes. It's not very many, right? Last year with Memphis was a huge majority of that. He played 748 minutes with Memphis last season. That was almost all of his 912 before playing for the Pacers. Isaiah Jackson, who's now with the second unit, in his entire career before this season, which was also 4 years, logged 1,029 minutes just with TJ McConnell. Not total. He logged way more than that total. 1,029 just with McConnell. So Jackson has more experience playing on a bench group with TJ McConnell than Jay Huff has total NBA experience. And I think you're seeing both of those things coalesce in a way that is, it doesn't, like, I still think, I wrote this in my story about Jay Huff's game against the Wizards, that Jackson's ceiling is probably the highest thing of any Pacers center, but the current arrangement of Huff's fit with starters and Jackson's energy and fit with bench has been their best alignment for the centers, both to be effective. I think they should stick with that until that is no longer the case, obviously, but they both right now look very good and very productive for this Pacers team. Last trend, this pairing has been huge, and you can see this if you just look at the plus minuses on the box score. A lot of players kind of even, +3 for Ben Mathurin, -3 for Ben Shepherd. 2 guys had some tough stretches, Nembhard and Robinson Earl, but most players right around even, except for 2. +22 for Siakam, who we talked about, and +20 for TJ McConnell. Nobody else was above, I believe, +3. Yes, that's correct. Right? So a lot of the mixing and matching wasn't working. But if Siakam was out there or McConnell was out there, the Pacers were awesome. And when they were out there together, the Pacers were really awesome. And Dustin Dupirak has been all over this, so we've been talking privately about it all the time. Entering this game tonight, the Pacers were -1 with Siakam and McConnell on the floor together. Entering the Wizards game, the Pacers were -13 with Siakam and McConnell on the floor together, but they were +12 that night. In this game against Washington, when those two were on the floor together, they were +22. So now in the season, they're up to +21 with Siakam and Mathurin, Siakam and McConnell on the floor together, and that is in about 110 minutes. That's excellent stuff. Now, obviously, a lot of it comes from this game just now, but that's huge. So that's a thing to keep an eye on, is those bench groups with both of those guys have been good. That's really helped the Pacers stabilize from they need the starters to build a bajillion point lead to win. And they've really figured out that their closing group today is currently their best group until they get Nesmith back. And that's McConnell and Huff surrounding their other best 3. And that was the closing group today. They came in with 4:18 to go in this game. The Pacers were losing, and then they won the game. And that group of 5 played down the entire stretch and were quite good. The exact score as TJ McConnell and Jay Huff came in for Ben Shepherd and Isaiah Jackson with 4:18 to go was 97-92 Bulls. And Siakam had just hit a shot. So it was just right before that, a 7-point game. And then the Pacers only allowed 4 points the rest of the way. And only one made shot, a Trey Jones shot to tie it with 8 seconds to go, where McConnell overplayed, thinking there was going to be a steal in the corner, where the Pacers offense was quite good in that stretch. A Mathurin dunk, a Siakam shot, a McConnell shot, just everybody chipping in. So that lineup, keep an eye on that. I might talk a little bit more about that tomorrow, as well as something that is clicking for the Pacers at the current moment. Jay Huff was a huge story in this game. The first 3.5 minutes was all Jay Huff. The closing stretch on defense had a lot of Jay Huff. We'll talk about that and empty the notebook to finish up today's Pacers Bulls Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, got to talk about PrizePicks. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. We're all making choices every day, and one of the most fun places to make the right call is PrizePicks. It's the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup. You're in the game. It's simple and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. They've added an extra layer of excitement to holiday sports schedule by you can create a lineup. It takes less than a minute. The app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. You choose from a huge range of unique stats, fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. The early payout feature is a great bonus. When your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to capture it early. And the new Stacks feature lets you choose the same player up to 3 times in one lineup, like more on a QB's passing yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards. Deposits and withdrawals are quick and easy, which keeps everything flowing. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA. to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. And we're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Thank you for being an everydayer or in the everydayer club. For those of you who listen every single day, don't miss anything. So when I cite old episodes, you know that you heard me say it already. Make your second listen Locked On Bulls. Here, the other side of this game from the Locked On Bulls guys. Look, the Bulls are better than the Pacers, or at least have been this season by record, but holy yikes, are their recent results terrible. They have lost 3 in a row to the Hornets, Pacers, and Pelicans, and barely beat the Wizards right before that. That team is in some trouble after a very hot start. They were awesome to start the season, but I think Kobe White will get healthy and really stabilize and help that Bulls team. Okay, let's talk about J Huff again, who was just very good against the Wizards. He bookended this game, right? And I immediately felt like, so I already made the case for why he should be starting. But this game specifically with Vucevic, who is like the face of Isaiah Jackson's problems, like a guy who can be powerful but also shoot jumpers, is like the worst possible Isaiah Jackson matchup. And that was the case in this game. Jackson was much, much better against the Bulls, Lachlan Ulbrich and Patrick Williams front court than Nikola Vucevic. But Vuce, for all the things he's good at, he's not very fast. And no Kobe White, who's also very fast, meant that outside of the occasional giddy kind of switch, there was nothing you'd be even afraid of J-Huff switching onto. So, I keep talking about how great he's been around the basket, but how horrible, like when he gets switched on to Karis LeVert, it's just over. It's immediate barbecue chicken. They didn't have any of those scared matchups today, so they could just have Huff out there to hoop. And holy cow, did he. I kept making the joke at the beginning. Okay, it's Pacers 8, Bulls 7, and J-Huff has 8 points. Okay, it's Pacers 11, Bulls 8. Okay, J-Huff has 11 points. J-Huff with the first 14 for the Pacers. And it wasn't just that he had the first 14 and it was, a 3 in this minute and then a 3 the next minute. And, the offense is kind of sluggish. He just scored every play. He had their first possession was a turnover. Then it was Huff 3, Huff put back, Huff 3, Huff 3. Then Nembhard missed a pull-up 3. And that was very funny because Nembhard shot it. And everybody's like, why is he shooting? And then another Huff 3, 8:18 to go. Bulls take a timeout. They have to adjust. They immediately are bringing somebody over from the weak side to stop his pick and pops, and lo and behold, 2 buckets later, Nembhard hits a pull-up. It's the first non-Huff basket. And then Mathurin's driving, and Kevin Huerter's guarding the weak side corner. So Kevin Huerter's normal job is, oh, crap, Ben Mathurin's driving to the basket. I better slide under the rim and either make him, shoot a tougher layup or kick it out to the corner shooter, and I'll try to recover. But Huerter is so concerned about getting up toward J-Huff if they go that route, or Xing out if they go that route, that he actually rises up from the corner and Mathurin just jogs right past him for a layup. So Huff's start was huge in that way. It opened up the floor for everybody else, which is funny because Huff scores 14 points in 3 minutes and 42 seconds and then did not score the rest of the game, which that has to be a first. Or that's got to be the most points scored in that amount of time in a game where you don't score any other points. Still very good, obviously. 14 points, no turnovers, no fouls. Stop there. That's already a good game. On 5 for 9 from the field, even better. 8 rebounds, very nice. 2 assists, that's good. 4 blocks. If Wemby has now played too few games to qualify for league leaderboard, so J-Huff leads the league in blocks. He was hooping, and I got a hilarious tweet after he had 14 and 3, whatever, that said, "Watch out, Wilt," and I just died laughing. I thought that was hilarious. So he had 14 points, 2 boards, and a block in 6 minutes and 32 seconds in his first stint, which is hilarious because I still think, again, the general premise of what I said holds, like Isaiah Jackson's ceiling, that's like normally attainable is higher than Huff's, but the J-Huff, that was the best stretch of center play for the Pacers this season. He got huge cheers when he checked back into the game. And then he was quiet the rest of the night. Not quiet bad, just didn't do as much because the Bulls were laser focused in on him. And he comes in late, like I said, 4 something to go with McConnell to help the Pacers try to come back and win this game. And he was huge. He didn't do anything critical offensively. He grabbed a rebound with 2:33 to go after a Vucevic Mitch that he helped force, which we'll get to that in a second. And then he blocks. So this is huge. So it's 99-98. And the Pacers are coming back. And Ben Mathurin misses a 3. Josh Giddey gets the board. He's pushing in transition. And here comes J-Huff. Perfectly timed block that they called a goaltend, but because it was in the final 2 minutes, it's auto-reviewed. Pacers don't even have to challenge. They get the rebound, and they look at it and it was a block. It was obviously a block, I thought, but I think is better for them to call the goaltend and look at it than not call it and not review it or change the game flow. So that was fine for the Pacers, and they got a little stoppage out of it, which led to a Siakam bucket to take the lead right back. And Vucevic misses a three next possession. And the Vuce miss that was the huge one is after he got blocked again later. Nembhard misses a three that would have put the Pacers up three. So Kevin Huerter doesn't score at the cup. Vuce gets it, and Huff holds and blocks both of their shots. Then the Bulls get the ball again, and once again he does well defending Vuce. So he was awesome late in this game, defending Vucevic, blocking shots, got a few keyboards. So he was awesome to start the game, and he was awesome to end the game, and it was on opposite ends of the floor. Excellent game from J. Huff once again. Okay, let's run through the notebook on a few guys. Isaiah Jackson, I talked about him a little earlier. He was great, especially late in that third quarter. He was up to 10-9 when I typed a note about him, and he was playing really well at the second unit. And then he had a stupid foul the next play, and I thought, oh boy, is he about to lose it? No. He had a huge recovery right after that to block a Patrick Williams dunk. He actually had one nice play on Vucevic, but the very next play, the Pacers put Jarris Walker on him. His timing on his dives to the basket has been fantastic. He's dribbling a little bit in productive ways and not like forcing shots. His defense has been solid. He's getting steals, which is a good sign of Isaiah Jackson activity. I just feel like he's got his feet under him in a way. And I think back with him a lot because he is being graded on the standard of a rotation player. But I think back to Jahlil Okafor telling me about his Achilles recovery where he was playing basketball again in 9 or 10 months, but it took him like a year and a half to feel like himself again. Jackson is still not even a year and a month removed from his injury, right? So a lot still to come for him, but he was very, very good again in that third quarter stretch for him. Was huge bench Shepard threes, 2 for 4. That's 3 multi-3-point games in a row for him. He had 2 ugly misses of his 2 misses, but progress for him. He's actually making the 3 again. I talked to him about that. I'll have a story about that coming up. Another thing for Mathurin where same thing I felt after the Wizards game. He played well. He had a good game. 19 points on 19 shots is actually like substandard for him. There were no free throws in this game. None in the first quarter. Only 11 for the Pacers, 16 for the Bulls. So that game flow hurts Mathurin's style. He had 5 turnovers. That wasn't great. He still had 19 points. Like, I'm not saying he played poorly, but he did drive into traffic a lot. And in a game without free throws, that was not rewarded. That hurt him the way this game was being called and the way he responded to it. Jarris Walker, after a great stretch of games for him and the season he'd had with a down game, 1 for 4 from him. And his one ugly turnover happened again where he got into the lane. He sees J. Huff, gorgeous read, jumps up, has a chance, and then throws an overhead lefty pass for a turnover. It's like he did everything right except for the pass. It's just that's the Jarris Walker experience. To me, a couple game flow things that I thought were interesting. The Pacers really struggled with Josh Giddey early. That was the first sign to me that like, is there going to be cracks in their defense? They just lost him on a few threes. Giddey finishes with 17, 11, and 7. He was the guy that they had trouble with, but their defense was fine enough besides that early in the game. And so in a game that were low fouls called, that's been a huge Pacers problem defensively. They could really shut down a lot of guys. Vucevic struggled. Buzelis struggled. Javon Carter didn't do anything. Patrick Williams struggled. The Bulls could not get enough offensive flow going, and the Pacers defense deserves a lot of credit. Jump shooting was the only thing that kept this game close for a long time, and the Pacers for a while were on the right side of that, but they got their finishing going, and at halftime, I put in my notes, the Pacers were shooting better from 3, finishing better from the rim. They had more assists. I felt like their offensive process was better because they were getting those better shots, finishing more, had more assists. The ball movement was there, and the Bulls were just making more pull-ups. I thought they'd win by double digits. Instead, the Bulls flipped that. I would assume who got going a little bit. Ugly start to the second half and the fourth quarter. The Bulls actually got some rim pressure and made it a game. So the Pacers' style was not rewarding them early, and then the style of the Bulls flipped the game in the second half. And the early fourth quarter was almost dreadful for the Pacers. They couldn't score at all. They scored 2 points in the first 6 minutes, 1 for 11, I believe, to start the quarter. But their offense survived when that great group came back in the game to get it done. Last 2 notes, because it was probably his last game with the Pacers. We'll see what the hardship rules may be, but Furphy got assigned to the G League on Saturday, so he's practicing. We learned that Cam Jones is maybe healed but needs to recondition. If they're not going to be out for 2 more weeks, the Pacers will not be eligible for another hardship, which means this was Garrison Matthews' last game with the team. His hardship will expire. By the time I'm talking, it's probably done. It ends after Saturday. He did not make a three again. He only made threes in one game. He just wasn't good. He wasn't good enough. But I thought it was interesting that Jay Huff, the Bulls were like, yeah, we'll leave him open for 4 threes immediately. But Garrison Matthews, they were petrified of. They were all over him, and he took some tough threes, and he missed all of them. So I can't imagine they keep him. He didn't shoot well enough and didn't look like super good as a fit, which is weird because he's drilled threes everywhere. It's just the curse of the Pacers season. Guys who made shots in other places can't make them here. But I will say this, that was very telling to me about the respect Matthews gets as a shooter, that Jay Huff, the Bulls were like, yeah, whatever. And Garrison Matthews, they're like, no, stay right with that guy. Do not let him get open at all. They play different positions. There are differences. Okay, that is the end of Pacers Bulls. We'll be back tomorrow going deeper on some of these trends, the defense, this lineup stuff, Siakam and McConnell together, and we'll dive into something else that I think of. And then, of course, there's games all week. The Cavs, the Nuggets, some fun ones, some real tests for the Pacers as they're showing some signs of improvement. 2 wins in a row. Thank you all so much for listening on this weekend. Enjoy your Sunday or whatever day you're listening. Back tomorrow talking more about the Pacers. You can find me on social media at Tony Ariz, this podcast at Locked On Pacers. Till then, everybody have a wonderful day.